it's really awkward.
You find your mind moving, maybe asking, what are they doing? Why am I doing this? Maybe your mind starts to think about lunch and maybe there's something in my teeth, or maybe you're not even paying attention to what we're doing at all, which I think is the point, right? That this idea of walking in without having any information up front, not feeling that confidence when you walk into a space, immediately puts you on your back foot.
So I want to hear from you all for just a moment. So shout out and answer. When you think about this kind of feeling, and when you think about your early work experiences, who helped you? Who helped you understand? Yes.
Sorry, the older grizzled lady who'd been there forever, who knew all the unspoken rules and everything, but she would always take somebody under their wing.
Yeah. Told the truth. I saw another hand. Yeah. What was the difference that happened when you knew, when somebody explained to you what was happening?
I felt less like an imposter.
Yeah.
Did the rules ever get explained to you in a less than gentle way? Were the consequences more severe than just simply feeling out of place?
Our goal at Evergreen Education and our work together with incarcerated individuals is to take those rules and make them visible so that people can walk into new jobs feeling like they're not completely uncomfortable and lost, but instead, at the very least, they know how to ask the questions.
So this is sort of the beginning of our understanding of what the mise en place is for the hospitality employee. We began this process with months and months of interviews of restaurateurs, hotel, hospitality people within the economy in many different roles to find out what their needs were. And I'm sure everyone's going to roll their eyes when I say this, but it wasn't technical skills. It was the ability to show up, to be prepared to listen, to understand how to take and give critique, to be professional, and a lot of these sort of durable human skills that seem to be powerful. And so Elizabeth and I built this idea that maybe instead of a traditional culinary or hospitality training program that focused on how to cook, which can be very empowering, we focused on the minimum standard of technical skills and put human skills at the forefront so that people could understand how to communicate in any arena in which they walk into, because anybody who's worked in hospitality knows that they're probably pretty proficient anywhere they go, whether it's in the hospitality industry or not. So we put these four pieces together as being the most valuable. The technical skills, which, like I said, are the sort of the bare bones. Sanitation, receiving, inventory, yield, some knife skills. Identity, purpose, those are more focused on who they are, how they represent themselves. The purpose is really important for this generation of incoming workers to find a reason to do this work, right? You can throw a magnet in a lake on the end of a rope and make money on YouTube doing that. The idea of why are you there and putting that at the forefront of the work shows real power and agency within themselves and understanding that they have the ability to really achieve things. And then lastly, these human skills that really put the ability to communicate and to be a part of a community of people at the top of the list of most important skills. Maybe you don't know how to cook, but I haven't met any chef that doesn't say to new employees, this is how we do things here. This is our culture. This is our process. Everyone, and myself included, I've been a chef for 25 years. I can teach you to cook. That's the easy part. I cannot teach you to show up ready to work. I cannot inspire you without you having to invest in it yourself. You have to participate in that process. And if you come to work with those skills already, you're ready to rock. I'll take you the rest of the way.
So we decided that we were going to start in a deeply constrained environment, which in this case was the Berkshire County Jail and House of Corrections, which is in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. We went there to support individuals who were going to be returning home either to their home communities or to a place to create a new home within 3 to 6 months. So these were people who were exiting the system, and we wanted to set them up with the skills that they would need to do great work.
Working in tangent with local community programs that offer transitional support services, whether it's substance abuse or getting a bank account or getting a driver's license. Second Street Second Chances is the organization that we worked with in Berkshire County. And for those of you who don't know, if you're released from jail and you have no place to go, that in Berkshire County, they just drop you at the bus station and you're on your own from there. And so recidivism becomes a major component that we're trying to address. And it's having these skills that we think are valuable, I think takes it to the next level.
So we did a series of interviews to select participants, and we selected 10 individuals to participate in this pilot program. Out of those interviews, we identified a set of core beliefs that we as individual instructors and facilitators felt were important to embed in absolutely everything that we did. First, we assumed that every individual who is participating in this would act with positive intent. We gave grace everywhere. We treated people as human beings. We assumed that they could work together as a team, that they could imagine a future, this idea of like hope, like I can see something, and that they could solve problems and innovate, that they can make that idea that they have a reality, and finally, that they can persist through challenges. So we expected people to trip up, and we wanted to teach them the skills to continue on.
Through the initial screening process, we interviewed, I think, 15 individuals and asked them a series of questions, mostly focused around why food is important to them or what was exciting, but really if they could identify a person that had an impact on them, both in a positive way and in a negative way, and also what impact food had on them in a graceful way. We wanted to see that food, which is a commonality within our species, is required, is a great connector, and it's an equalizer. And so it's one of the things that we felt was really easy to connect with individuals who had a varied past than we did, but also they were going to find that on the outside as well too.
Yeah. And so what we did to actually structure the program, and Aaron hit on some of these technical skills already, so I'm going to push us over to these human skills. We used human-centered design as the backbone for how we taught and how we instilled and embedded these human skills over the course of our 4-week program. So individuals would come in, they would do work in the kitchen, they would learn some of those backbone kind of knowledge base around the technical parts of being in the hospitality industry. But then we ran them through a 4-week workshop series, basically, in which they got to collectively identify an opportunity for a business around food. They collaboratively actually built what that concept would be. We walked them through how to make decisions. What are the things that you need to weigh in making those decisions? They came up with a design, they ideated on it, they got feedback, they responded to that feedback. They gave each other feedback. And then we moved into project planning and a healthy dose of competition. So everything was about how do you actually apply in context. This was not a theoretical process. This was something that they actually did in real life together.
Yeah, I want to just touch something about these technical skills and how they married to the human skills here, which is sort of a key, this is core element of this work in general, which is a sort of steps of service. To focus on that in particular is understanding that these individuals had the information, they knew it. They had a deep understanding of what it meant to go to a restaurant. Doesn't matter if it was a 5-star restaurant or a McDonald's. There was a step. I walk through the door. I walk up to the counter. Somebody greets me at the counter. They ask me what I'd like. I tell them what I'd like. I look at the menu. All of these steps we broke down bit by bit by bit based on their ideas, based on their dreams that we had them come up with, and built an entire business plan around that concept so that they could realize that they actually had that information in them and they were empowered to talk about it and workshop it with others and get real feedback to see how it could actually work. And then once a week, we put them in the kitchen to perform, to make to make bread, to make empanadas, to make cookies. It was all handwork. I didn't want to use tools. I didn't want that to be a limiting factor. So they made bread, they made empanadas all by hand. They made cookies. The idea was that they could use just their hands or a very simple tool to do this. And it brought empowerment with a tangible experience that sort of allowed them to really crystallize this information.
And it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah. Yeah, the impact was huge. We saw that ultimately, in the end, they realized that they could come up with a hypothetical situation. They could draw it out in their mind. They could build a set of steps that was necessary in order to achieve that. Then they could discuss that with other people. They could make that plan. They could see its value. They could execute it. Then assess that execution, make changes, and then do it again and continue to practice it, which is what we hope for all hospitality workers, is that they listen, they try, they create something, and then they go through it. And in the end, this ended with a competition. So the last week was, they had the constraints. They had 3 hours to prepare 3 recipes, and they were all on their own. So I didn't give any guidance. I was there just to sort of support them. They had their recipes. They had all of the ingredients that they would need, their mise en place, and it was up to them to spend time with Elizabeth leading up to that session to design, ideate, create their mise en place, their list, their order of operations. And then I set the clock and they went and did it. And they crushed it. They absolutely crushed it. I mean, I'm just really happy with the bread specifically. But I think what I pulled away was that people were discovering skills that were valuable at a high level. So one gentleman, does anyone bake bread here before in their lives at a professional level as well too? I'll just say that, yeah. So time is really a valuable component in bread baking. And one of our students was marking the time that the bread began its proofing, and marked it when it finished its first proof, and then marked it when it went for its second proof, and notated the time himself. I didn't direct him to do that information. He just did it based on his own constraints that he put on himself for the other recipes that he had to do. And that blew my mind because that was just something that was in him that just made sense to do. And that's what we wanted to show them, that some of these gentlemen had never experienced identifying their own value. And this was a great opportunity to let them see it for themselves.
Yeah. And I think the final thing that I'll add is that even though this was a competitive environment, there were prizes at the end, there was a judging panel, is that they actually came together and figured out how to collaborate, how to make things more efficient. And they built a plan for those efficiencies in the kitchen, which was phenomenal.
And they were supporting each other to do that. There was no animosity between the gentlemen in the class. They were really supportive. I need onions. Someone else needs onions. I got it. I'll take care of it. I'll put them to the side. It was really a collaborative environment, and it was awesome.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening to our story.
Thank
and
you.
I think we have time for questions.
Are there things that could be taken from this experience and used in different occupations or industries? I'm just curious, like, what are some like extractable components of this that you could use to teach other skills?
Yeah. So we're working on a version of this that is primarily virtual, that can be integrated into any hospitality and in particular kitchen environment or restaurant environment. I think, but some of the things that are most transferable in my mind are this idea that we don't do technical and human separately. Like when we think about how we show up at work, we're not like, oh, and now I'm going to do my problem solving thing and I'm going to do my analytical thinking. It's like, no, I'm doing my like empathy and my decision making and my math simultaneously. But when we pull those apart in learning environments, we lose that ability to integrate. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm most excited about coming out of this was that we saw how when you actually treat the learning as a whole, it's so much deeper. And that I would love to see happen everywhere.
The technical skills can be adjusted, I think, to really fit the minimum standards for any human-based organization. But the human-centered component, I think, is more or less universal. I know certainly within healthcare and customer service-based operations, you see the need for people to enter that industry quickly, but the humanity needs to be there. The hospitality, the thing that we are all focused on, needs to remain. And I don't think hospitality is specific to the food business. I think hospitality is the working with other people component.
I'm just curious, what placement is like and how did the employers perceive your program, having previously incarcerated people? But I mean, they come out, they go through your program. Obviously, they come out with a new look on life. So that's one thing is placement. And the other is, do they tend to stay in the field?
Yeah, so we've had some failure, I think, but the success that we've had has been significant and really dramatic. We had a lot of buy-in early from businesses in the area, and we told them what we were doing. Working with that transitional organization, Second Street, really helped us with credibility for the hiring and the onboarding process. And we did spend time with individuals in another iteration of this, going through the entire job interview process. We provided them with clothes. We provided them with all of the access to banking professionals to teach them how to set up an account and to get themselves ready to join the workforce. The retention, one of our students, Joe, he's already been tapped. He finished his program in April. He's already been tapped from management. And because he is, sorry, there's one story I have to tell really quickly to answer your question, is that Joe had been through other jobs previously, but was working with Sodexo, and not to put Sodexo on the spot, but there was a manager there who was an alcoholic. And Joe, instead of confronting that individual, Joe was really uncomfortable with this guy, with being around this individual. And instead, he spoke to Joe, addressed it by speaking to the other managers that were on the team, and ultimately asked to be transferred out of that position into an area of the business where he did not have to interact with it because of the personal discomfort that he felt, which was a huge gesture in his own professional development to show that he was like not going to confront it with, he was going to use his heart and his mind together at the same time to ask for more, because he was valuable in that business and he knew it and they knew it, but he just didn't, he knew how to ask for help and he knew what to do with it. So we saw employers really respond positively to it and to be on board with it. But we had to do a lot of work initially before we began the program to make sure that that was going to be the case. And they reviewed our curriculum and they were on board with it, you know, from the whole thing. So
Thank you.